Great. Well, welcome everyone to Pandemic Parenting. This is a partnership between Jewish Family and Career Services, JumpSpark, and In the City Camp. We are really excited to be here today. We have a special guest speaker, Dr. Lyudmila Trost from Jewish Family and Career Services. She works on the clinical staff. She's going to speak with us today all about family dynamics, give us some tips and tools. So before we begin today, we just want to encourage everyone that's here to share and to ask questions and to really make this time yours. And I also just wanted to share that Jewish Family and Career Services has many different options for support. So if you should need support during this time, which many people do, besides just this group, this is really a time for us all to be together and to kind of hear that we're not alone. But there's also just a lot of different support and resources over at Jewish Family and Career Services. We have clinical services, we have psychoeducational testing, there's a psychiatrist on staff there, emergency funds, food assistance, career services, Aviv older adult services, intellectual and developmental disabilities services, and the Ben Missel Dental Clinic. And I am also, my name is Julie Zeff. I don't think I said that earlier. So my name is Julie Zeff. I am also on the clinical staff at Jewish Family and Career Services, and I have 3 kids, an 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 15-year-old. And I do individual, couple, family, and group counseling. I also teach some yoga and some dance fitness, and I help my clients to live lives they love. And I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. And I'm a mom, so we're, trying to figure out how to make it through this pandemic and what this means and all these questions, and being at home with family, having just received the news that my kids in particular are going to be home through a lot of the beginning of the school year at least. So this topic is really timely. But let's start today just by sharing some celebrations. Sometimes when we're in the middle of these very stressful times, it's hard to even focus on the good. And so let's just take a moment and see what we can celebrate from today, from just this moment. It can be teeny, it can be small, it can be from this week, from the past 3 months. So whatever it is that you want to celebrate, see if you can find something and let's share. And I can start us off by celebrating that my kids we were thinking about sending my kids to go visit my sister-in-law in California for about a week, and I was super stressed about that decision and not sure whether that was a good decision or not. And we decided last night that we are going to postpone thinking about the decision, and they're not going to go soon, and we would reschedule the trip. So I feel some relief about that, and I am celebrating that in the moment. So who else has something to celebrate?
I would say this is small. When I was telling my daughter, I have a rising first and rising pre-K, I was telling her, like, you're not going back to your school in the building, and she's like, I don't care. She's like, I like doing school at home. I don't know what we're gonna do about that, but like I count it as a small win that like we did some camp at home, like that she's really actually enjoying all this. So just have to keep reminding that we might not be enjoying it, but the kids seem to be. So I call that a win.
That's a win. Yeah, great perspective, right? So not putting our anxieties or whatever we're going through on the kids. Yeah, beautiful. Great awareness. Who else has a celebration?
Very small one, but yesterday when I was trying to get the kids to bed, my son offered to help clean up dishes instead, and then help load the dishwasher. He's 7. And he was like, I like helping you, Mommy. And I'm like, that's really sweet. I wish you would do that more often. But yeah, that was nice.
Great. That's a celebration for sure. Helping with the dishwasher. Great.
I have one. It's very small, but yesterday I know I said last week we've been renovating our downstairs for about a year, and we're at the tail end of it, and I finally was able to open the boxes that had our sectional in it and get it set up. And so I had a huge box, and I gave it to my kids and they played with it all day, and there was no electronics the whole day. And that hasn't happened, I don't think, it's been a long time. So I felt like that was, by the end of the day, I realized they hadn't been on their tablets all day and had just played with this box and played with each other. And I was like, oh, okay, it was a good day, and they didn't fight much. It was great.
That is a huge one.
Beautiful, yes. And related to our topic today as well. I'm sure. That's great. Thanks.
My son did not have a tantrum after he got off the electronics yesterday, so I was very happy about that.
Beautiful. Yeah, great. So it's important to celebrate these big or little, whatever they are, these just moments, and to make sure that we can kind of feed ourselves these, I think, especially during this time when there is so much going on and so many questions and anxiety or just uncertainty. So great. Well, thank you all for sharing. I know I just feel lighter and like can see all your smiles and in your eyes as you're sharing. So thanks for that. And so let's head into just sharing what maybe brought you here today, or what you hope to get from today, or even just something you want to focus on, like an intention for the day, or focus on shifting or changing in your family, even in particular, because that's our theme or topic today. So does anyone want to start us off there?
I will say, I don't know exactly what you're planning on talking about today, but I'm revealing a little bit here. I deal a lot with like anger towards my children when I get frustrated with them. I'm not an angry person. I never have been. I used to be a teacher. I was like, I love kids, but something about my children, I love them dearly, but they bring out this anger in me that I did not know that was there. And sometimes I feel like I see it coming out in them, with each other. But then I start to panic because I feel like they're seeing that in me, and that's what they're learning. So I try to be very mindful about it, but just dealing, I guess, with that kind of conflict in our home, like how to deal with that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing about that. I know you're not alone in that as well. So thank you. Yeah.
I would just say stress in general. So like both my husband and I work, and like I said, young children, and luckily they're not in the house at the moment, even though it doesn't look like that. But so just trying to manage it all, because we signed up to be parents, right? But I don't think any of us signed up to expectations of having them home 24/7 while you're trying to do a zillion other things at the same time, right? So that's just a whole new dynamic that's hard to manage, right? And I'm a planner, and I hate that I can't plan anything in any of this. So.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I like that idea that we signed up for this, right?
Yeah.
Like that whole idea. Yeah. So now what? where's the rule book, right?
Right.
All the guide. Great, thanks. Anyone else have a intention or focus for today? I can share for me that I just, in general, an intention is to bring in a little more smiles and some humor. That is definitely not my strong suit. I'm a little more serious, and especially these days, I think a little more serious and thoughtful. And my husband kind of owns the humor realm in our house. And I'm so grateful for that. And I love that he makes me and all of us laugh. But I'm starting to feel like, okay, wait, I kind of sit at dinner a little like quiet and watch everyone else. And I'm like, okay, wait, I can add in there too. And I can bring some lightness and humor in there. So I'm playing with that as we're all spending a lot more time at dinner and in the house together.
Actually pretty similar in that my husband tells me that I also am very serious. I need to lighten up sometimes because there's just so much always going on in our heads and everything that we see in our homes. So yes, so the things that I'll be talking about, I'm also trying to incorporate.
That's great. Yeah. It's always a work in progress, right?
Yes.
For me, I had to just do 3 things at once. That was fun. And step away. And my son's trying to get me to buy something on Roblox. And, and I got a call. Yeah, it's hard because my husband's working downstairs and he's the primary breadwinner in this family. And so his work comes first and I'm the one dealing with kid stuff and hearing the kids fight all the time and all of the above. So those are the things that I'm frustrated with right now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, a lot to manage. And yeah, so is there a wish in there if there could be fighting? I'm not putting words in your mouth, but just in terms of family dynamics, curious about that.
Is there a wish what? I missed that.
To have less fighting.
Oh, yeah.
There. Yeah.
Yes. I wish the kids would stop bickering with each other because they have a lot of fun with each other, but then there's like still the constant arguing. And I'm like, just stop.
Right.
Mommy.
Yeah. Beautiful. It makes it more challenging.
Your Apple ID.
Great. All right. Anyone else want to share about what brought them here or any intentions? Okay, so let's head into hear our speaker for today. We're so blessed to have Dr. Lyudmila Trost with us today from Jewish Family and Career Services. She has years of experience working with children and young adults and their parents and just lots of different and varied experiences. And she's here to talk with us today about family dynamics. So thank you so much for being here with us. And I'm gonna turn it on over to you, Dr. Trost.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm going to share my screen, and then when I'm done, I will stop sharing my screen as we talk about this. There's a lot, and I'll also say that when it comes to family dynamics, there's so many family dynamics. I may not touch on everything. I hope I touch on some of what you're hoping to get out of this. And so, well, if I don't, we can talk about it definitely afterwards or even after this meeting. I'm always happy to talk further. Where's the there? Okay, so just starting with family dynamics. So I wanted to just start off by saying that as parents and caregivers, you have a lot of power with how interactions go in your family. At the same time, just know, and I feel like this is very repeated a lot, this is a stressful time. So have an expectation that there will be heightened dynamics. So whatever your usual patterns of interacting are or struggles that your family may have had, this may exacerbate or heighten those. So if one parent tends to be more strict and one is more lenient, you might find that those patterns are even stronger, as this is how we cope and manage stress. And the coping strategies that we use on a daily basis are definitely tested during this time. So there will be fighting, there will be arguing, there's lots of stress. But think about how you want to respond after a stressful interaction and try to work toward that interaction. So if you're sheltering in place, this brings added stress and closeness to the family, for better and for worse. There's pros and cons. If you're working in high-risk areas, this brings added stress and worry. Your kids are going to go to a physical location for school next month or this month for camp. That also brings stress. So just know that we're all under heightened stress, at least in different circumstances, and give yourself a little bit of leeway when you do get upset in a situation. We can go through life just kind of going through the motions a lot of times. So being more mindful is hard to do on a regular basis when there isn't a pandemic going on, and it's even harder to do now. So try to set an intention as much as possible some intention or goal, kind of like we did at the beginning of this talk, for interactions that day or before a specific task or activity, because some interactions are going to be more stressful and there may be more arguing, but try and think, okay, the next task or activity, I would like it to go this way. And so you're already approaching that task differently. And I also just wanted to point out that just knowing that there are opportunities during this time for your family interactions. So your kids may be in a situation now where their siblings are their playmates, more so than ever before. And there may be more opportunity now to think about what you want your family interactions or relationships to be. So a lot of this is kind of putting your mind in a place so that you're working towards that. And it's not always going to go perfectly, but if we are thinking about something, then we're not just kind of going through the motions. So consider the values you hope to impart through your interactions, whether it's kindness or helpfulness toward others, self-growth, making the world a better place, Jewish identity, whatever your values are, try and think about how you can impart those to your family. Putting effort and time into setting the tone. So making personal changes in how you interact with family members and modeling what you want to see for your family interactions. So music, there's a lot of power in music to help set or change the tone, like background music at dinner time, especially if dinner time can be stressful or very quiet. On the other hand, just having some kind of background music there. Throwing on some good dance music randomly, especially if there's some tension going on between any two people in the household. Getting up and dancing can help shift a mood. And if somebody watches mom dance around, that's going to change their mood, whether it's the kids laughing or getting them to join together to roll their eyes at you. That's okay too, because they're still joining together. So it can help things get a little unstuck if there is that tension, just throwing in some silliness there. So these apply to all family relationships, and some apply with friends, colleagues, and other people as well. So aiming for 5 to 1 positive interactions to negative interactions. And so positive, it could mean very simply, it could take a second, giving a high five, just smiling is a positive interaction, giving a hug, saying thank you, awesome, or any other positive comment. So it's not easy to do, but it can be very helpful. And also, it also models for your kids, which is huge. One person mentioned earlier getting very upset, and that's going to happen. But if you're extra mindful of, okay, well, I'm going to try and aim for 5 positive interactions compared to that 1 negative interaction, then you're going to be finding opportunities to put in some of these positive interactions. And so scheduling one-on-one time with a different family member. Again, we're kind of strapped for time nowadays, especially if you're working from home in addition to being a parent and a spouse, and it's just a lot. But as much as possible, if you can schedule one-on-one time with a different family member once a week, if everybody can kind of have a different day to have one-on-one time, it can be 10 minutes, it can be 30 minutes, as much as possible. And sometimes you'll see if somebody's mood is particularly down or more stressed lately, maybe that person really needs more of that this 1 week or 2 weeks later or something. Showing gratefulness, saying things like, thank you, please, before a request, and I appreciate what you did. And try and write down at least one nice thing that you saw somebody do that day. It can really increase your attention to positive actions and things that you're grateful for. And then I also just want to say to be kind to yourself during this time, because it's a tough time. So try, if you do get upset, try not to let that guilt kind of take over you, because you can always bounce back up and not in kind of fix the situation, because relationships are ongoing and there's going to be pros and cons on a regular basis. I think if there's no fighting in any relationship, then that means that there's not much emotional closeness either. So sometimes you really just need that fighting also. So briefly just talking about different types of family dynamics, and I may not address all the different ones that that you are thinking, but just a few. So grandparents and other older family members at this time, especially the most important would be keeping them safe, and then setting boundaries and respecting the people and those boundaries. So one thing that I'm hearing quite a bit is when grandparents have parenting advice to give you, because they've been there, they've done it, listening out of respect, and then later deciding what will be best for your family, not to put in any extra tension. It's not necessary. Then you can listen to them and move on. And briefly talking about the spousal relation before we get into parent-child and sibling dynamics. So your relationship with your spouse really shows children how to make a marriage work and how relationships work. So if you can schedule that one-on-one time at least once a week, some weeks are going to be more difficult, but try to choose one day that usually works for both of your schedules to spend 30 minutes or an hour together. And it could be doing anything, but try to have the phone away or the electronics away, unless you're watching some movie or video or something together. But something where it's just the two of you, because especially during this time, I think with so many people working at home and so many of the child dynamics going on and spilling over into everything in our daily lives, we can forget about the spouse. And as much as possible, we don't want to do that. So parent-to-child dynamics. So there's probably going to be more screen time. Try not to let that guilt about the screen time make you feel bad or upset about it. Including a child in an activity you need to get done, like playing basketball by throwing rolled up socks into a laundry bin 3 to 5 feet away. I mean, just making a game out of it. Putting dirty dishes in the sink. That's also great, because a child loves to feel a sense of responsibility toward themselves, towards siblings, towards their belongings. And they love to feel like helpers, even when another child is sad, upset, or hurt. Right? If one child gets hurt or is sad, you can encourage another one. If you have more than one child at home, hey, can you come get a Band-Aid? Can you come get a tissue, whatever it is? And then they already feel like they're being helpful to the one that's sad. When it comes to kids and teenagers, doing something side by side, you have noticed, especially if they're teenagers, you may have noticed that when you go for a drive somewhere, or if you're walking somewhere, that side-by-side interaction is less confrontational. And so if you take a 30-minute walk, or you can go pick something up, right? Because nowadays we're not driving to so far to too many places, but even if you go like pick up groceries or something, that side-by-side activity really encourages talking, and especially if the phone is away. So that's something that if it's done on a pretty regular basis, it can be a great opportunity that kids and teens can kind of sit down in the car, or they start walking with you and they're more comfortable just kind of talking, because they're not having to stare at your face and see your reaction the entire time. They can just kind of talk free association with whatever's on their mind. And this works with young kids also. I know there are a few people here have young kids. If you just take a walk with one or two kids, just going for a walk outside can be helpful for them as well, to just kind of start talking about different thoughts or feelings that they do have with everything that's going on and in general. And you probably have heard this a lot, and it's always a great idea to have some kind of family game night once a week, or outing if you are comfortable going to a park or something, just to foster more of those positive interactions. Because there's a lot of stress right now, and as much as we can foster those positive interactions, it's going to be helpful. And so this is one where I feel like this and the next sibling dynamic. So if there's a sibling dynamic, if there's a baby in the house and there's an older sibling, just a few kind of ideas. When the baby cries and you're doing something with the other child, try to finish the activity before getting the baby and saying, oh, let's finish this up. Baby is crying. You may feel like, okay, I need to go get the baby. But your other child also needs to know that you're not just going to leave them at the drop of a hat anytime baby cries. Reinforcing with hugs and compliments anytime an older child is loving toward the baby, saying, I love when you show your love to the baby, he or she loves it too, things like that. Talking to the baby, because babies need to be talked to throughout infancy. So talking to the baby and talking about and complimenting the older child, saying good things like, oh, you know, your brother is such a good listener. Your sister is so helpful. Look how nice she's doing that. She's coloring so well, whatever it is. Or she's jumping so high, whatever the activity is. But that way you're talking to the baby, and the older child can kind of get this like, oh yeah, look, I'm getting these positive things said about me. And yeah, I'm doing this good. Yeah. So it can build them up even while you're meeting both needs. And when a baby takes a toy from an older sibling, encouraging that older sibling to give a baby toy to switch for the one they want instead of just taking it. Can be a very impulsive, very quick response to just take that toy back and then your baby is crying, but trying to teach the older one to switch. And then fighting siblings, which I think is a lot of what's going on right now during, at least from what I'm hearing in general, from a lot of people, that there's a lot of fighting between siblings because they're home all the time. And I mentioned earlier how if siblings don't fight at all, they may not have a great relationship then. So just knowing that when they do fight, it means that they also will have times of closeness. And so it's just a matter, some of it is a matter of balancing that out. So conflict resolution, it's important for life. If no one is physically hurt, try letting them resolve the conflict on their own, so you're not going in and saving the day every single time. And try to avoid taking sides when the kids are fighting. And while they're trying to solve it or they're escalating their argument, you can encourage, I mean, you can definitely jump in and encourage each different child to listen as well as express their wants when they're fighting, to try and help them resolve the conflict without you doing it for them, but you're kind of giving them ideas on how to resolve their conflict. Encouraging shared activities daily as much as possible. And again, we all skip days because there's just a lot going on, but even if a shared activity lasts only a couple minutes, that's great as well. So reading the same book separately, or one person reading it aloud, even an older sibling can read to a younger one during the day or even at bedtime, and that can help their relationship. Doing physical activities with whatever you're comfortable with during this time, whether it's bike riding together, going on a hike together, a neighborhood walk, physical activities, as we know, it always helps our mood, and it helps to do things with other people, especially the people that we're around all the time. Encouraging cooperative activities, not so much competitive against each other, unless it's competitive in a playful way, but as much as you can to encourage cooperative activities like a scavenger hunt, or encouraging kids to work together toward a common goal or incentive. And then you want to reinforce, you want to compliment them on working together. And so there are apps, like Plum's Photo Hunt by PBS for kids, and Let's Roam for adults, which are scavenger hunt type apps. So you can check those out. There's some free, there's some that are costly that I found. Those couple are free, Plum's Photo Hunt and Let's Roam. So there are a couple that you could check out to see if those might be helpful, because I know it can be time consuming to create a scavenger hunt. So doing an activity that you can laugh at together, such as Pictionary, unless you're really a good artist, you have good artists in the house, or charades, something where you can laugh. Because laughter will really strengthen those relationships whenever you're laughing together. Encouraging your children to say goodnight to you, to your spouse, to your siblings every night, to their siblings every night when possible. Sometimes it can be forgotten, especially in daily life, and depending on what that time looks like in your house, for one child to say goodnight to their sibling. But just like if you would want to say goodnight to a friend when you're at a sleepover, you want to say goodnight to your sibling as well. And so as much as you can try to remember to do that and encourage them to do that is really great for their relationship. Writing or drawing something to give to a grandparent or older family member or friend just gives it something together if they want to do it separately or together. It's just ideas for activities that they can do together to help foster some kind of positive relationships between siblings. And if possible, volunteering to deliver supplies or walking a dog. And I'm hearing a lot of families are fostering a dog during this time. So just something where that the goal really when it comes to fighting with siblings, you don't always want to jump in and resolve their conflicts for them, but you can help them try and resolve the conflicts, and the activities that you can encourage them to share together on a daily basis so that their relationship strengthens. So that's what I have to share. So then I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and what kind of questions came up in your mind. Wow, no one was talking a bit.
When you talk about the screen time, and I know you said this was your win this morning, just how to get them off, right? Like when the time is up, we've done timers, we've done this, and sometimes they're like, okay, and other times it's like, no, just more and more, and then the transition to the next activity is just brutal.
Oh yes, it can be really brutal. And young kids, even teenagers, a big thing, there isn't really consistent research that I've seen in terms of how much, especially for teenagers, how much is appropriate, how much is too much or too little, really just kind of depends on your family dynamics. There's some research for younger kids, without getting into that. The piece that we really want as much as possible is for the kid to be able to turn it off themselves. Because that practice of them being able to close it or turn it off and move on to something else helps them. And so, I mean, just like transitioning from any activity, if you can, saying like, okay, you've got 5 more minutes. Okay, finish this one video or finish this, see until this ends. And then I want you to turn it off. And so instead of taking it from them, I'm not sure if you're doing that or if they're turning it off, but as much as they can then turn it off or walk away and then do something with somebody else. Or if you're like, hey, come help me with this quick, just to transition to something else without a full-on tantrum, will be great if we can avoid a tantrum at least once in a while. Is that something that I know I've gotten in the habit of just like, sometimes I just need to take it because it's not turned off.
Yeah, we just let them turn it off. And I've thought about using like popsicle sticks. Like these are each 15, 30-minute increments. If you use it up all at one time, you're done for the day, right? So then they can figure out like, okay, do I want to save some for later or do I want to use it all now? And then kind of letting them choose when they can do it. But I haven't done it yet. It was just
a great idea because it's a visual, concrete way for your kids to see time.
Yeah, and then they start that next show and they're like, I just want to finish it. And I'm like, there's 20 more minutes in this show. So
right.
It's not consistent. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're crazy without stopping. So.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard. But as much as they can turn it off themselves and you say, I'm so proud of you for turning that off. You're so mature, so responsible, whatever words work for you and feel comfortable, encouraging them and letting them know, complimenting them when they are able to. Sometimes with my kids, sometimes the child will turn off or close the tablet and then for a minute, sometimes 30 seconds, they're calm. So I'm like really feeding them, like, I'm so proud of you for turning that off. But then they're like, but I wasn't done, but I wanted more. Like, okay, time to transition, let's go.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. But I do love the idea of visual to make it more concrete.
Yeah, any other questions or anything that stood out for folks? There were so many great tips and tools. I have so many stars here by things to remember. I especially love that 5-to-1 positive to negative interactions and trying to remember that. I think that goes for every relationship that that I can think of. And just to remind my kids about that as well. So I've heard it talked about, and I like bringing it up as like the emotional bank account, and that you have to make the deposits so that, because there's always going to be withdrawals. We're going to fight, or we're going to have times when we don't agree, or things don't go so well. So you want to make sure you have something in there to take out in the bank. So, but I like the 5 to 1 too, because it's very concrete. It's very specific of like actually thinking like, have I said 5 nice things or done 5 nice things? And versus just this kind of more general idea. So.
Right. Or even just smiled. You can be so brief, but that counts as a positive interaction.
Right. Love that.
Yeah, the 5 to 1 stood out to me too. And when you were talking about it, I was thinking obviously more about myself, but Julie, you talking to your kids about it, I like that idea too. I didn't think about it that way. And really, I mean, my kids are 7 and 4, so they're still kind of young, but that could be a easy, when they do have a fight and it's time to make up. I mean, you have to say, maybe not 5, but you have to say 3 nice things about your sister. Tell her 3 nice things about her, or vice versa. So I might try that and see how that works.
Absolutely. Even throughout the day. I definitely like the idea to kind of repair that, that after the fight. That's great. And then as much on top of that, like, oh, I remember yesterday you said that your sister helped you clean this up, or gave you a cup that you couldn't reach or something.
Yeah, I'm going to try it.
When you were thinking, Sarah, it made me think about even, and maybe Dr. Trost, you can tell us what you think of this, but it made, I wasn't sure where you were going with it, but I was thinking about even your kids doing 5 nice things for you or to you, or like, it made me think about like talking to my kids even about that. Like, I don't really include myself in it. Like it's more about their dynamic and their interaction, but just this kind of idea of maybe like it's for all of us as the family, like even the parents, you can do nice things or say nice things. We can do it for each other too.
Right. Yeah.
So.
I think it's a good idea, depending on how kids react. Sometimes teenagers can be rather resistant to that, but even through resistance, sometimes they'll give it a try, and other times they'll just resent it. And we don't want to increase resentment, but you could always, with your spouse, like, okay, it's good for our relationship, but it's also good just to show this to the kids and talking about it and really pointing out kind of like some of those positive things about each other in front of the kids. So you're modeling for them and they take that.
It's beautiful.
I liked the one-on-one activities. I mean, I think we do that, but we naturally fall to the child that likes us the best, right? And so making scheduling time to flop that as well, and not just with everybody, right? Like one-on-one time with the ones that they don't naturally gravitate towards.
That's great. And Lauren, what are some things, can you share some things that you do one-on-one or that you have done?
Well, I don't think that we do a great job of flipping it, right? But like my son is a mommy's boy, my daughter is a daddy's girl. Like it's just, we have a hard time even switching bedtime that way. So I think we've tried, it's just sometimes easier to default. But so just finding more time that I can just do with my daughter and that my husband can do with our son separately. Encourage those relationships. But it's easy for me and my daughter. I mean, we do girly things, you know. And my son doesn't really care what we do together as long as he's with mom. So it's trying to find things for the other side.
Yeah, that's great.
You're right. We do kind of fall into patterns, and just kind of noticing what those patterns are, and then deciding, okay, yeah, no, I want this to change a little bit, and I do want to have more one-on-one time with my other child. That already in itself, you're going to be more aware of opportunities to find that one-on-one time when you're already aware of it.
Anything else stand out to anyone? I know for me, the saying goodnight to everyone, and I was curious about that with teenagers, that we haven't really, that's not a pattern in our house, but, and sometimes now our kids go to bed and they don't even say goodnight to us at times. Like I feel lucky usually that I still get to tuck them in, even though they're older, and that's very sweet. But they don't say goodnight to each other. So I was just wondering, like, could we change that at this point in these teenage years? And I'm sure we could, but it's kind of an interesting idea to think about. It's very sweet. What do you think? Does it work for teens, do you think?
It depends on their relationship with each other, but I think it can always be great to foster and to encourage. Like, hey, you would say goodnight to your friend, wouldn't you? So say goodnight to each other. Mm-hmm. In families, the people we feel most comfortable and most familiar with are sometimes the people who get the worst side of us, and because we're so comfortable. Whereas the people who we're less comfortable with in public and friends, colleagues, they'll see the best side of us. And so it can be definitely hard to, because the people who are most important to us, we want them to see the best side of us. We want those relationships to be the strongest, but it can take extra effort.
Yeah, I like that you normalize that as well. That if you have you're fighting because you have a relationship. So it's a reframe of that, instead of the fighting being bad or not a great thing. Can anyone else relate to that with the fighting?
My kids miraculously play very well together. I mean, they have expected fighting moments, but somehow their dynamic's pretty good. So it's more so me and my husband that we have to tackle more.
Yeah. You may see that change in positive and negative ways in the head as kids get older. But it's wonderful that they do play so well together. Mm-hmm. And as parents, we model so much, and so much that we've got to be aware of and putting effort into, because our spouses are the people we're very, very comfortable with. And sometimes I know I can say some very mean things, and then I feel really bad about it because I was just feeling whatever mood I was feeling, and that's not helpful. And the kids see that.
Well, that leads me to a question then. My husband and I, we don't actually argue or fight very often. It's lucky that way, but obviously it happens sometimes. And even just recently we were in a bit of a heated argument, and my son, who's 7, they were in the next room, and usually they're so oblivious to whatever's going on around them. But for whatever reason, he heard, and he came in the kitchen and was like, "Stop fighting, don't fight." And I mean, what's your advice on how to address that if you're fighting in front of your kids? And I mean, I've heard about like making up, like resolving it in front of your kids if that were the case. But I mean, at the time we were not ready to resolve the argument. So I guess I'm just wondering what advice you have for handling that.
Well, one thing you said is that you don't fight very often. And so that's in itself a blessing. And so your kids are not used to hearing you both fight. So when you do have some heated disagreement, that can set off big alarms in their minds. Like, this is so, no, please don't do that. I don't want. And so in many families, when couples argue, kids can be like, oh, whatever, they're arguing again. Let me just go to the other room. But for your kids, because it's out of the norm, it affects them. You say, like, it's okay. Sometimes we disagree about this. And we still love each other, even though we're disagreeing about this. And so we're just trying to figure this out, even if it is heated, but just reminding that anger and love can go together in the same moment. And for the kids to know that as well. just because you're arguing doesn't mean you're going to go get a divorce, right? I mean, we all argue, and that's part of a relationship. Just knowing you still love each other, but you're trying to figure something out.
Yeah, that's good.
Great. Well, maybe we could all, just in these final moments, go around and just share if there's even like either something, one thing or two things that stood out most for us here that we want to take away and remember. And maybe if there's even some kind of action or commitment that you want to commit to that might help bring you closer to your intention or goal, or just something you want more of that you may have heard today or been inspired by today. That'd be great. And sometimes it can be helpful to lock it in as we move forward and into our lives. And so I can just start with the 5 to 1, but I am going to bring that up at dinner tonight and remind everybody about that, and kind of approach the saying goodnight to each other kind of thing, and just see what kind of reaction I get from people, and just float that out there, and we'll see what kind of response we get. But.
Yeah, I mean the 5. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, the 5 to 1 for me too, I think is something that I'll try to do, and also, like I said, maybe try to encourage my kids to do as well. And then I feel like I need to be better about having some one-on-one time with people in my family, including my husband. But I'm always big about, like, if we're doing something, let's do it as the whole family, all of us do this, all of us do that. So I think I need to try to implement doing things one-on-one with my kids. So I'm going to try to do that this week.
Great.
Same on the one-on-one. I already talked about trying to do more of that, but then also wrote down, like, making sure you said something about the values of your family are coming across in your intentions and in your words. So A, trying to figure out what those values are that we want to make sure are coming across, and B, doing it. 2 parts.
Yeah, beautiful. Love that idea. You talked about those values. I've forgotten about that one. Thanks for the reminder, Ron.
What I'm working on as well. The conversations with my husband to make sure we're on the same page and showing that. And for me, also trying to have more laughing activities, because I'm not so great at that.
I'll add that one in as well. Chantal, are you in a place where you can share? I know you may not be, but.
I had to get on another call partway through.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Great. So, well, thanks everyone so much for being with us. Lyudmila, any final words to share? Anything else you'd like to?
Sounds like everybody's doing really wonderfully in their families with the normal ups and downs. And so just give yourself that credit, that whenever you hear a positive comment, that it's a big win,
Beautiful. Well, thank you all for being with us today. Thank you, Dr. Trost, for being with us, sharing some tips and
Julie.
tools and wisdom, and everyone for all your sharing. And yes, just be easy, loving, and let's go see what we can create and change and who we can be with ourselves and our families. And thanks for all the inspiration, everyone. Be well. We'll hope to see you next week. We have a couple dynamics next week with Dr. Helen Kotler. So hopefully you'll come back and join us, and we can really dive in and focus more on that couple's relationship that you were talking about, Dr. Trost, today, and how important that is. So come on back next Friday, 10 o'clock Eastern time. We'll see you then. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.